Thanks. My name's Tim. I'm an alcoholic.
Hello, Tim.
I had an experience on the way here which I've been having for a very long time in AA, which is being asked to go and do a chair or something, or going to a meeting in an unfamiliar part of London and walking through unfamiliar streets, looking at unfamiliar people. Walk into an AA meeting, I feel entirely at home instantly amongst a group of people who wouldn't ordinarily mix. That's what I like about AA. There's no requirement for membership. If you've got a drink problem, you can come in. And if you've got a criminal record, you can come in. And if you've got a criminal record, you can sponsor someone. And if they find out that you've got a criminal record and they don't like it, they can fuck off and find someone who doesn't have a criminal record. And Intergroup has no authority over this group or any other group. Region has no authority over any group. General Service Office has no authority over any group. We're in charge. And as long as we remember that the in-chargeness in AA lies in AA groups and AA members, that we're self-determining, we're a little private group of private individuals who've come together for a particular purpose. Nothing outside an AA group can interfere with what is going on inside the AA group. We're answerable to ourselves and our higher powers. Is my view. You don't have to agree with it. That's my view. My date of sobriety is 24th of July 1993. I got sober when I was 21. I think it's safe to say I'm an AA man. A friend of mine who's a Jesuit says with the Jesuits, if they get you young enough, they got you for life. And I think AA is a bit like that. It got me young. It got me the age of 21. And I hope it's got me for life. My only job in AA, my life is very simple. As an alcoholic, my only job is not to have another drink for the rest of my life. And that's the only thing that I cannot do on my own. Anything else I can do, that's the one thing I cannot be trusted with, therefore I have to come to AA, and it does for me what I can't do for myself. 99% of the time what AA does is it removes my desire to drink. And for the 1% of the time that the desire is there seems to be an invisible wall between me and alcohol. So that even in those rare moments over the last 31 years where I've thought, you know what, F it, I could really do with whatever, a drink, a drug, or something else. I have these spontaneous thoughts like, what about the people I sponsor? It would be unfair of me to them to slip. So I'm not going to. Now, that's not me thinking it through. That's a thought which occurs to me spontaneously. And it's not because I'm trying not to drink. It's not because I'm trying to be sober. What I try to do is the things in AA. And as a byproduct of that, I seem to stay sober. And I came into AA with lots and lots of other problems. Psychological problems, emotional problems, social problems, practical problems, financial problems. I was told, put AA first, everything else will sort itself out. And I can report at almost 31 years. I put AA first, I continue to put AA first, and everything else has sorted itself out. And interestingly to me, I'll leave you to be the judge whether it's really interesting, but almost all of those things which I thought were so complex sorted themselves out without me having to do anything other than what is in front of me in AA. All these years later, I don't understand my childhood still, but the difference now is that I don't care because I'm okay now. I wasn't okay then. I'm okay now, not because I figured out my childhood, but because I found a new life in Alcoholics Anonymous. And my childhood just became a story. It doesn't hurt anymore. What I did do in AA, I'll tell you a little bit about my drinking. There's a line in the Big Book, which I found very useful, by the way, the Big Book. There's a line where it talks about this so-called phenomenon of craving. And it says it explains things which we couldn't otherwise explain. And what it says is that there's something inside me which activates when I have a drink. And it takes over, and I'm just going to carry on drinking. And this explains a lot to me. A lot of my drinking, I wanted to drink buckets of alcohol, and I did. That doesn't prove anything. But there were these odd occasions when it was really in my interests to keep a lid on it. So when I was back with my family back in the country, and to get drunk would just create misery for everyone. They weren't drinkers. And all I had to do, I didn't even have to stay sober. I just had to be reasonable, just have a few drinks, top up gradually, don't go over the edge, don't lose it, just don't be a dick. But I couldn't keep a lid on it. It was in my best interests to drink moderately just for one day of the year. Could I do it? No. Now that's a question which deserves an answer. Why, when I really wanted and needed not to go over the edge, why did I do it? The date where, once you get to know someone, you've got them hooked, and they'll learn to put up with your drinking and your foibles and your whatever. But the first few dates are crucial. If you muck it up then, the deal is off. And on those occasions, all I had to do was keep a bit of a lid on it. And I remember a particular occasion when I was on a date, and I thought I'm doing really well here. I thought, it's in the bag. And I was holding forth on some subject, not much has changed. I was holding forth on some subject, and I drew breath at one point, and the person opposite me said, "Why are you destroying yourself?" And I realised I'd blown it. So this gives me a question. Why do I keep drinking way too much? I always wanted to get drunk, but I never wanted to be so drunk that I would be lying on my back at 2:00 in the morning, desperate to go to sleep, but unable to go to sleep, because if I closed my eyes, my head would start spinning and I knew I was going to throw up. So not to throw up, I had to keep my eyes open. And I'd be in that position for a couple of hours before the head stopped spinning and I could go to sleep. Awful situation. All I'd have to do is just cut out the last 1/4 of the evening's drinking, not to have that repeatedly, but I couldn't do it. And if you say to me, well, the reason you drink so much is not because you want to, not because you're escaping anything, not because of your childhood, not because of your situation, your finances, your upbringing, your environment, none of those things. It's because there is a mechanism within you which forces you to carry on and convince you that you're acting under your own will while you're doing it. And I've got an answer now. That's why I do it. And that's a deadly answer, because what that means is if I were to drink again, the beast would be activated. And the beast doesn't want to stop. And I've seen enough people drink again after many years, and they know everything they need to know. You can't tell them anything they don't know already. They finish your sentences for you. And they want to come back. They come back to meetings they're unable to come back. I don't want to be one of those people. So I've got to make sure that I don't have the first drink. But there's a second problem, which is that occasionally a drink will seem like a good idea. If I'm in charge of my life, if I'm in charge of me, if I do what I think is best, when presented with the day or presented with the situation, I say, right, who are we going to ask? Tim, what do you think about this? And I give myself my, honest views. And I say, well, that's very good. Well, it's you that's saying this. Therefore, everything you're saying must be true. I'm going to do what you tell me to do. It's like a sort of, it's like an electoral system where you're the population voting for your own MP, but it's like a population of one. You're the electorate and you're the person you're electing. I lived in a universe which just consisted of me. There were these shadowy figures out there who were there to be manipulated, but everything was down to me. And the insanity in step one is not, I'm a loony from first thing in the morning till when I go to bed. It's the danger is that I'm basically sane except for those moments that I want to have a drink. But those moments when I want to have a drink, that thought of a drink will strike me as being as sane as getting on the Central Line to go into central London. That they don't look they just like perfectly normal thoughts, and they're true and real and good and right because they're mine. So to not die of alcoholism, I've got to not have the first drink. To not have the first drink, I've got to not be in charge. I've got to live in accordance with a system which involves doing something other than the thought that's just come into my head. And I say this as someone who, my first meeting was in, I've been trying to get sober since 1990. My first meeting was in January 1993. So there was a good 2.5 years of being unable to remain stopped on my own. And then there was 6 months in AA between the January and the July, where what I was trying to do, I tried a method, I don't know if you've ever tried this, of letting the love of AA wash over you and letting people love you till you can learn to love yourself. Now, it's a method. I tried it, and it's very nice, but it didn't stop me from having a drink. I loved myself well enough already. Thought very highly of myself. Actually, I thought a little too highly of myself given my behaviour. If I thought a little more lowly of myself, maybe I'd have been right-sized. I tried all sorts of things. Except the very disagreeable thing of getting a sponsor who would bark at me and just tell me to do things. That was the last resort. It's the one thing I hadn't tried. I tried all the softly, gently approaches. Nothing. Because I just drink again. After the last drink, it was so humiliating, but also so terrifying because I recognised that my ability to come back after each drink was weakening. I was becoming more and more alienated in AA by all the you people who seemed to be just getting sober and staying sober, and I wasn't, and I was looking less and less like you. I was looking more and more like a different type of alcoholic, a different type of character, and I'd see people at the back of meetings who'd been drunk in that meeting on and off for 30 years, and then sometimes they'd disrupt and sometimes they wouldn't, but you let them stay there. Of course, you hoping that they're going to get it one day. And I was starting to become one of those people, just like on the streets where I lived, the people I identified with locally were the other street drinkers. Because I would look them in the eye, they'd look me in the eye, and we knew something about each other that other people didn't get. And I was starting to look at the drunks at the back of the meeting who were not getting sober, saying, I can see something in you, and you can see something in me. We're identifying with each other in a way that I don't identify with the nice, clean, sober people. And this started to worry me. This got my attention. And I just gave up. And I got on with it. And what this meant was doing exactly what my sponsor said, regardless of what I thought about it. It meant doing the steps pretty quickly in the first year. To use someone else's phrase, I wouldn't give you tuppence for how I did the steps, but I did them. My first step was 7 pages, just 7 pieces of paper. I mean, closely typed, but nonetheless, 7 pieces. It wasn't 4 ring binders of stuff. It wasn't a minute, meticulous analysis. But it had the merit of being as honest as I was capable of at that point, and it did the trick. What's the trick? Not drinking. As soon as I started to pedal, it's like a bicycle. You know those old bicycles where when you pedal, the little light would come on at the front? Pedaling, getting somewhere in recovery doesn't get or keep me sober. It's the pedaling in the right direction which keeps me sober. That's what makes the little light come on. It's not about getting somewhere. Sometimes the people with the best energy in the room are the people in the first 6 months who are pedaling really fucking hard in order not to drink, and the light is on. And then there are people who are 20 or 30 years sober, God bless them, who are having a great life, very competent, very sane, but like the eyes are dead because there's no pedaling. I would stick with the winners means stick with the people who are currently pedaling, people who are busier than they strictly need to be in AA, not the people who are calibrating how much can I get away with, how much could I do to just about stay sober but not overdo it. You wouldn't want to overdo it and go to too many meetings. Have you ever met anyone that overdosed on going to too many meetings? And I mean, just you can't do it. So I did the steps. I started to form a relationship with a higher power. I didn't have to understand the higher power. I tried to have a conversation with my sponsor about higher power once, at one point in my first year. And I thought, this is going to be interesting. We're going to investigate all of my complex difficulties with the idea of God, with religion and religions, and he's going to be so impressed with my advanced philosophies, and I'm going to get a lot of mileage out of this one. We're going to get a good 3 or 4 long visits. I'm going to keep going around to his flat, going to talk. We're going to really do this question of the higher power to death. And I said to him, Doug, I need to talk about the higher power. I don't believe in a higher power. He said, there are only 2 things that you need to know about your higher power. Number 1, there is one. Number 2, you're not it. Let's go on with your step 4. That was the end of the discussion about higher power, because what he realised quite rightly was that any advanced theory that he was going to try and force down my gullet would not be digestible by me in that condition. I was not capable of taking on board any information. There was too much crap in there which needed to be gotten out first before anything sensible could be forced in. And in the steps, I didn't do anything, no complex analysis. All I had to do was observe, write down, disclose. Observe, write down, disclose. Once there was nothing more to observe, write down and disclose, that's the end of your step 4. With the amends, people say it's not about saying sorry. Well, it was for me. I went around and said sorry to the people I'd hurt. I apologised to them. It's not. I don't think it's. I don't know what it's supposed to be if it's not apologise. Anyway, people can argue about that, I'm sure, but people appreciated it because it was done with sincerity. I didn't need to be told to help people in my first year. I don't know I don't know what that's about. Maybe it's luck. But I was so grateful at having been plucked out of the soup by AA and put on the straight and narrow and given a solution not just to my alcoholism, but very obviously AA was starting to work on everything else that was wrong with me. I was so grateful. I desperately wanted other people to have the same opportunity, to have the same solution which had been given to me. You couldn't have stopped me in my first year. Over the next 5 or 6 years in AA, I started to get very involved in my outside life. Not a bad thing in itself, but it was at the expense of AA things. And I went for about 18 months, occasionally coming into a meeting to dive bomb and then come back out again. But I wasn't really a participant for a good couple of years in AA until I didn't drink again, but I became peculiar, should we say. And when I came back around 10 years with full force, and that was 21 years ago that I really started to, I thought, the outside world, I'm still going to have a job, I'm still going to have a family, I'm still going to have all of these things. But you know what? The thing which is really worthwhile is the gift I've been given in here of the ability to help other alcoholics the way I've been helped. So I'm just going to say to God, you use me however you want. And I've been kept very busy in AA. I don't know what good any of it's done, but it's kept me sober. And it's kept me out of a lot of people's hair, is another thing it's done. And all I have to do every day is, the first thing I do in the morning when I wake up is say, God, hello, have a little chat. What should we do today? And I make a list of things to do. And then I do the things on the list. And then I get to the end of the day and I say, hello, God, and we have another little chat again. If I go off track during the day or I get upset, I don't analyse it. I don't even particularly call people unless it's very serious. I just say, God, I've gone off track. Bring me back on track again. What's the next right thing to do? I don't solve any problems in AA. I get on with the next right thing and the problems solve themselves. I'm going to finish on this. There was a chap many years ago called Andre who said, almost everything sorts itself out. And for the few things that don't, there's God. There you go. That's all you need to know. And that's been true for me. But it seems true because I put AA first. If I didn't, it would seem like madness. So thank you for listening. I'm looking forward to what everyone has to share.
Thanks, David.